Let's explore how overthinking is unnecessary and easily avoided. Tonight's lesson is drawn from the 43rd verse of Yong-jig xuan-jue's The Song of Enlightenment. Together, let's chant. We do not define the truth, illusions are already empty. We define what is and what is not, but we do not empty emptiness. It's 20 different kinds of no concerns of ours. We share the universal Tathagata nature of awareness, letting go and love. What is meant by our Buddha nature? In days of yore, I'm looking at you, Iron Age, we did not have functional magnetic resonance imaging machines, and so the anatomy, no less function, of our brain's parts was a complete mystery. And so they came up with the phrase Tathagata or Buddha nature. But now we have all kinds of fancy imaging machines, and we know that it is that every time we breathe in, whether we know it or not, we access our sympathetic nervous system, which is ensconced within the thoracic region of our spinal cord, in the region that corresponds with our rib cage. And that while on one hand it is not wired for either mind blanking or concentration, it is wired to simply notice, and to do so vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. So it is our sympathetic nervous system which wires us for mindfulness. On the other hand, every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we access our parasympathetic nervous system. Now, like the bit before it, it too is located in the spinal cord, but this time in both the lower lumbar region that correlates with our hips and the tippy top of our cervical region that corresponds with the top of our neck and the bottom of our brain. It's wired to support both physical relaxation and mental release, which is also known as meditation. The third part of our trio. And so because of this, we do not need to rely on belief or a contemplation, but simply noticing and letting go. The third part of our trio would be the anterior cingulate gyrus, this region here, just a few inches behind our forehead. This functions as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy. Here's a quick trick of the trade. If you or your teacher find the need to actively contemplate loving kindness, it's because you're probably cranky. And if you're cranky, it's because instead of practicing mindfulness, vulnerable, passive, visceral, and random, you were practicing concentration, which is indulging your controlling tendencies and your rigidity. The opposite of those tendencies would be our tendencies to be flexible and laid back. So when we feel the need to contemplate loving kindness, that's our body telling on us that we've been concentrating instead of practicing mindfulness. Or in other words, to quote our friend Bugs Bunny, as he said to Daffy Duck, I think we took a wrong turn at Albuquerque. Remember, the Buddha taught in the second to final passage of the Satipatthana Sutta that full enlightenment could be accomplished in less then 7 years, or 7 quarters, or 7 months, or 7 fortnights, or 7 weeks, or even 7 days. The Buddha taught an easy method that required neither blind faith or a PhD. It's easy and it's quick. And if the path you're on is difficult, arduous, and lengthy, you probably will want to rethink some of the preconceptions you might have been spoon-fed by others. I look forward to chanting and meditating with you after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I spent more than 8 hours a day, every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of Buddhism so that you wouldn't have to. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. Welcome back to Easy Proto-Dzogchen. Dzogchen could be considered the Zen of Tibet, although it predates Zen by many centuries. I call it Proto-Dzogchen because my Dzogchen teachings are based upon the founder of Dzogchen, Prahe Vajra of the Swat Valley. Sadly, over the centuries, people have complicated and even contradicted these original teachings. And then because these people tend to be patriarchal, they forbid others from reading the original teachings, telling others that they are restricted texts, and if they read them, they'll surely burn in Buddhist hell. Malarkey. As the Buddha lay dying, he explained, "I have taught with an outstretched arm and an open hand, keeping no secrets. If someone's keeping secrets, it ain't Buddhism." And note, this does not predate Buddhism. This is Buddhism. Now, technically, there is no need for recitations. However, I found that as a learning tool, people benefit from getting a familiarity with the Eightfold Path. And so, over the span of this evening's live stream, I intend to mention each fold of the path at least once, so you can become more and more comfortable with it. For instance, we're going to play with Wishing Love's second fold, the Wisdom of Letting Go's first fold, and Enthusiasm's sixth fold of the Eightfold Path. So we're going to, for our pre-meditation chant, we're going to play with Empathy's Bodhicitta and Enthusiasm's Refuge. We're going to play with two versions of this recitation. The first version is quite literal and elaborate. I've set it to a quasi-triplet chant. Please chant with me. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, grieving, and clinging, by relying on thee, Buddha's example, instructions, and students. So we take shelter in the Buddha's example. We take refuge in the Buddha's instructions. We take refuge in the Buddha's students. This has come to be known metaphorically as the three wish-fulfilling jewels. This final version of the same recitation is more concise and more figurative. We're going to chant it according to the bookend chant. and we're going to perform it for 3 repetitions. Please join me. May I liberate all beings by relying on the 3 jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the 3 jewels. May I liberate all beings by relying on the 3 jewels. Now, surreptitiously, we were also practicing 2/3 of the tantric path. We're practicing love and letting go. And by placing our hands in the puckered palm position in front of our sternum, we're practicing bliss and letting go. Now all that's left is awareness and letting go. And towards that ends, I'm going to introduce it to you in 3 steps. Kind of like when I get something from a big shelf, you reach for the step ladder. Same thing here. So we're going to begin with something which is reminiscent of our first bicycle. As children, the first bicycle we received most likely came with training wheels, which, although got the job done, were quite clunky. Similarly, this evening's first meditation is also ungainly. As we inhale, we could silently and mentally recite, perceiving this very turbulent play of mind. As we exhale, we could silently and mentally recite, relaxing into mind's non-graspable nature. Let's dig in. Let's remove the first of 2 metaphoric training wheels and reduce the length of our contemplative exercise from 12 syllables per breath down to just 3. During our inhalation, let us silently and mentally recite sitting tall, reminding our body to generate a vertical traction between our tush and our head. During our exhalation, let's silently and mentally recite relaxing. As we breathe in, let us silently and mentally recite, "Notice this." And as we exhale, let's silently and mentally recite, "Relaxing." Welcome to this evening's live stream. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. Please do not wait until the end to type your questions. Instead, strike while the iron is hot. Now let us remove the second of two metaphoric training wheels, reducing our contemplative exercise from 3 syllables per breath down to just 1. During our inhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this, and during our exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the monosyllabic verb ease, which functions as a synonym of relax. Now that we've reached contemplative cruising altitude, I invite you to join me as a team as we meditate as profoundly as Ahsoka Tano on Lothal. I would like to introduce you to a tool, an archetype. Consider this couple sitting in tantric union. In Sanskrit, it could be described as Samantabhadra and Samantabhadri Karamamudra. In Tibetan, it could be described as Kuntu Zong Po and Kuntu Zong Mo Yabyum. In English, we could describe it as some guy the color of the sky and some gal the color of a cloud doing the hibbity-dibbity. Now that we've got their names down, Sky Guy and Cloud Lady, or Cloud Gal, I can refer to them a little bit throughout the evening. The screen might go nuts. I will tend to it momentarily. Oh, how nice. Okay. Okay. As I mentioned during the opening class, every time we breathe in, we spontaneously and effortlessly access the sympathetic nervous system ensconced within the thoracic region of our spinal cord. It is evolved not for mind blanking nor for active concentration, but instead to merely notice, and to do so vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. And so it can be safely said that every time we inhale, we are wired for mindfulness. This could be symbolized by Cloud Gal right here. As I mentioned previously, every time we inhale, whether we know it or every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we automatically and effortlessly access our parasympathetic nervous system, ensconced within the lower lumbar region of our spinal cord, as well as the tippy top region of our tippy top cervical region of either the top of the neck or the bottom of the brain. It's wired for physical relaxation, for the physical relaxation and mental release that we refer to as meditation. And this could be symbolized by our friend Sky Guy. Let us consider the nudity of our friend Cloud Gal and Sky Guy. It reminds us of the vulnerability that is required for mindfulness. The translucence of Sky Guy and Cloud Gal remind us that every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel as if it was as non-graspable as a vast empty void. Well, what's that? Well, an example of a non-graspable vast empty void would be the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although is tantalizing to the eye, is non-graspable to the hand. The abandon with which Cloud Gal sports in tantric union reminds us that it is better to be spontaneous than contrived. The stability with which Sky Guy sits reminds us that our spontaneity need not be scattered. Instead, it could be centered. Those who practice concentration and contemplation get stuck in the crankiness and anxiety of the amygdala, whereas those who practice mindfulness and letting go experience effortlessly access the anterior cingulate gyrus, the seat of empathy, and thus experience the highest love, which is spontaneous and uncontrived. When our choices and our utterances and our deeds flow from love's centered spontaneity, life works out well. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever rage we experienced during our inhalation could begin to feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void. And that is what the big kids call mirror-like wisdom. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever craving or greed we've experienced during our inhalation can begin to feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void, discerning wisdom. Whenever we spontaneously experience befuddlement or confusion, that is an opportunity to effortlessly generate the wisdom of the basic space of phenomena simply by relaxing into our exhalation, causing our experience of befuddlement to feel as if it was as non-graspable as a vast empty void. Every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever jealousy or competitiveness we might have spontaneously experienced during our inhalation could feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void. And that is the wisdom, that is all-accomplishing wisdom. Every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever pride we spontaneously experience during our inhalation could feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void, thus generating equalizing wisdom. Welcome to this evening's live stream. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist chanting, Buddhist philosophy, Buddhist meditation, or how to apply them, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window. Please do not wait until the end to ask your questions. I'll be too tired and you will have lost the urgency. Better for both of us if you strike while the iron is hot. A literal translation of Samantabhadara and Samantabhadari would be the all good ones. Samantabhadara and Samantabhadari are not celestial entities that we petition. They are archetypes of our own enlightened nature. Each of us is born with the capacity for mindfulness. Each of us is born with a capacity for meditation. Each of us is born with a capacity for love, centered and spontaneous. All we have to do is get out of our own way and allow ourselves to notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly whatever comes up, whether it is external or internal or physical or mental or pleasurable or painful or interesting or boring or glorious or grotesque. Simply notice and relax, and everything takes care of itself. There is nothing special about non-duality. Every time we breathe in, we are wired to perceive dualities. And every time we relax into the non-graspable nature of that which we noticed, the dualities seem to have the same flavor of non-graspability. All right, here we go. So Pixie asked me a splendid question. Pixie asked, Lama, why is there emphasis on liberating all beings? How does it apply when I want to focus on my path? That is a very honest and vulnerable question, and I respect that. If you have been taught to actively concentrate and actively contemplate, then empathy seems foreign, because every time we concentrate and contemplate, we access the aggression and anxiety of our amygdala. However, when we replace those two things, when we replace concentration with mindfulness, vulnerable, passive, visceral, and random, and when we replace contemplation with simply relaxing into our exhalation, both physically and mentally, then empathy becomes spontaneous and centered simultaneously. When we experience spontaneous empathy, that's the litmus test of us being on the beneficial path. When we don't experience empathy, that's that's a signal that our central nervous system is giving us that we're getting stuck in the amygdala. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're being chased by a bear, the amygdala is your best friend. But if you're being chased by a bear while carrying your child and you decide to beat the bear back by swinging your child by the ankles, if you survive that, you'll probably live with self-loathing the rest of your life. So the Buddha inferred in the Four Noble Truths that there's a difference between surviving and thriving. You and I and everybody else have two reward systems. A dopamine-oriented reward system for pure survival, and an oxytocin-oriented reward system for fulfillment. And so the great irony is that although the dopamine reward system, I should say the dopamine system rewards for the 6 F's, for fucking and feeding and fighting and fleeing and fainting and fawning. It's the oxytocin-oriented system that rewards for cooperation and love, be it platonic or romantic. So these things are already wired into us. And they do not have to be an either-or sort of a thing. Way back, I think it was in perhaps the late 70s, I went to one class for basic computer programming. And that's when I was first introduced to the concept, or the formalized concept of if-then statements. And so it's not personal growth or universal benevolence. When we're on the path that's the most beneficial for us, that's the most mindful and meditative, then empathy will be spontaneous. Now, empathy is not purely an emotion. It is an intention. Here's the difference. You can feel like a cranky bastard and still not communicate or behave in a cruel, or communicate in a cruel manner. That's not hypocrisy. That's recognizing our emotions, but living from intention. And when an intention can flow from, here's a way of thinking of it. We can flow from scattered spontaneity, or we can flow from centered spontaneity. When we flow from scattered spontaneity, we're going to be unstable and dangerous. When we flow from centered spontaneity, we're going to be empathetic and insightful. If I've lost you, if I've done a poor job of explaining that, please persist with your question. I agree. I too would be happy if you were never chased by a bear. And yet I'm going to take another swing at it. I was, but then it flew away. So let's continue. During our inhalation, it is perfectly appropriate to perceive the duality of the beautiful and the ugly. As we relax into our exhalation, we could release the duality into simple sight. As we inhale, it is perfectly appropriate to notice the duality of harmony and discordance. However, as we physically relax and mentally release in harmony with our exhalation, that duality could collapse into the simplicity of sound. Just sound. Let's seal this evening's practice with 2 brief chants, beginning with kind ethics and concluding with the 4 immeasurables. May all beings practice of kind communication, conduct, and calmness flow spontaneous and uncontrived. May everyone be free from misery, may everyone be happy, may no one be separated from the happiness. May everyone have balance from the tyranny of hating, craving, and confusion freed. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10 3/4 hours, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's early meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.